And welcome into the Donovan Live Postgame Show on WKYC's Facebook Live with our Facebook Live superstar Jim Donovan. I'm Dave Tinatale. Thanks to Sandy Alomar Jr. for joining Jimmy just a few moments ago.
I had such a great time talking to him. He was one, if not my most favorite of that group, of those Indians. He's right up there. He's just a great guy. And he's getting a big award.
Yeah, I mean, Sandy, if you didn't get a chance to see the story, Sandy, next week, 1 week from tonight at the Greater Cleveland Sports Awards, he will receive this year's Lifetime Achievement Award. A former Lifetime Achievement Award winner stands to my left here. And it means a lot to him because Cleveland still means a lot to Sandy. And, he's was here as a player for a long time, and he's been back as a coach now for a long time. And he really loves being in this community and having his name associated with Cleveland.
Oh, absolutely. He's a part of a huge renaissance at the time of baseball, Indians baseball. I mean, the Indians were, struggling. No crowds going to the games down at the old stadium, but they made a move, traded Joe Carter away, Baerga and Sandy come from San Diego, and they come here. And they start the ball moving. Now, it didn't start right away.
No.
Okay, baseball is one of those, you don't get an immediate push right away in baseball. I mean, it takes a little time, and it did. But the amazing thing was the timing. And Dick Jacobs was an amazing guy. His timing on a couple of things, all right? But when Jacobs Field opened, that team was ready to be great, and they were great. And the other thing was, I think, on the other end of that, Dick Jacobs, when I say about his timing, he kind of knew when to get out.
Yeah.
I mean, the team had reached the 455 consecutive sellouts. He knew that he had hit the ceiling, I think, and that it was going to be difficult to keep it going.
Yeah.
And he got out, and the Dolans bought the team.
Yeah, salaries were escalating. I mean, I think he even put the team, you could actually buy shares in the team at one point before he sold the team. I think, he was very shrewd. And
I'm going to give you another shrewd moment that he did, and this has something to do with his business acumen. Remember, the Browns were up for bids.
Yes.
Okay, they were coming back, but who was going to own them? And so you had to, make an ownership application to get into the fray. And he did at the last minute. He got in. And the NFL then, if you stayed in, offered you the opportunity to take a look inside the books to own an NFL team and to own the Browns, what it would look like. You had to pay, I think, and I really believe this was the fee, I think you had to pay like $250,000 to get in and be able to see the books.
Wow.
And he did. And I think he did it more to know what he was up against as the owner of the Indians.
Right. And
isn't that
amazing? And probably about 2.5 years later, 2 years later, I mean, I'm sure maybe at that point that put the thought in his mind, you know what, this has been a great run. I still, this team may still have a couple of good years left, and they did, but I mean, you need to get out of this.
And I'm still going to have my good table down at Johnny's.
That's right.
Where he was every night.
That's right.
But I mean, he was a really good businessman, and it was a part of, and was the big part of the renaissance of Cleveland Indians baseball. But if you go out on the diamond, boy, if you have to be strong up the middle, it started with Sandy Alomar behind the plate.
Yeah, Alomar to Vizquel to Lofton. Right. It was amazing. Okay, what was amazing? If you didn't get a chance to see Donovan live, tonight's show, you basically spent an entire segment looking back at Bill Belichick's time in Cleveland. And we've put the story up now at WKYC.com. We'll throw a link to it here as well for you to see it. David will let you take a look at it. I have a bunch of questions because I'm real. I'm like you. I'm a student of history when it comes to this kind of thing. Looking back, as bumpy as things were, and we'll get to some of the bumps. Do you think he was on the right track the way he was going? 94, 11-5 Browns team. They couldn't beat the Pittsburgh Steelers that year.
They lost 3 times.
They lost 3 times, but the Bill Cowher Steelers. But there were good pieces on that team. And they even Art Modell even spent a lot of money, borrowed money from a bank to pay Andre Rising because that was the thing they needed. They had to have a breakaway receiver. They had to have a game-breaking receiver to go into the 95 season. But big picture, as you look back at this, was he trending the right way to have a long success here in Cleveland?
Well, there's a great debate about that, and we go into that in the piece. The debate is that structurally inside the organization, yes, he had started to build what was going to be needed to get him the players. I mean, the coaching staff was amazing. The scouting staff was even more amazing. I mean, a lot of those guys have gone on to be GMs of organizations. I mean, Phil Savage, the kid Dimitrov with the Falcons. I mean, there are other people that were there. Scott Pioli was there. I mean, so structurally, yes. But there was a problem that he didn't have, okay? He didn't have the quarterback, and he did not draft well at that time. Okay, he was not a good drafter. I mean, he does a lot of things great. He did not handle himself well in the draft. But the thing that drove him crazy was, and I mean, you can look at it, okay, he didn't have the quarterback. If he had had the quarterback, I think, bingo, they're ready to roll. He got rid of Kozar because he felt Bernie was not playing well and was a bit of a threat to him in the PR department. And then he went to Testaverde, and he found magic in a bottle for a short period of time. But the next year, in 95, even in 95, the year they were moving, but remember, they were predicted to be really a power in the AFC, if not the favorite to win the AFC. Testaverde was not playing that well that year.
He had Eric Zaire,
right, the kid from Georgia,
coming in and play.
So I think he was missing two components, not in the organization. He was building it the way he's done in New England, and you can see it, the fruit that is being bared there. But he did not have the quarterback, and he did not draft well. So he always had an old team because he wasn't feeding it. And so he brought in all those old giants.
Everson Walls, Carl Banks, Pepper Johnson.
Joe Morris,
Mark Bavaro.
Sure. Yeah, they all came in, but they were getting older. But as they were getting older, he was not drafting well, so he wasn't feeding it.
I always thought in that realm, he was bringing in these ex-Giants and very unsympathetically casting off popular members of the Browns or alienating guys that had been popular in the 80s. This isn't even before Bernie. I mean, whether you're talking about Slaughter, Brennan, and Langhorne, the wide receivers, whether you're talking about Frank Minifield, guys like that just, were so beloved here in the late 80s. I mean, they really were. It's again, we always say, they wrote songs about these guys, and there was just this lack of, I think as a fan, you just felt like there was this lack of appreciation. Okay, listen, I didn't draft you guys, you're not here, you're not my guys, you're out. And, as a fan, and I remember listening to talk shows and people would say, it's like, hey, wait a minute. These guys are the guys that made 5 straight playoff appearances, won 4 division titles, 3 AFC championship game appearances. And there was never, I think, an appreciation for that because that's not where Bill Belichick's mind was. His mind was always on, the bunker mentality.
Yeah, it was a bunker too. Well, he didn't care. I mean, he really didn't care about all of what you're talking about, the songs and everything. He was so laser focused in on everything, and this has continued now in New England.
I was going to say, I don't think that's really changed.
Frankly. I mean, they come and they go. I mean, Nate Soldier, great left tackle, but he let him go to free agency and he signs with the Giants. Willie McGinnis, gone. Great player. Should have retired as a Patriot. He's gone.
Lawyer Malloy ends up, going to and Bledsoe. I mean, out of there. Thanks for
absolutely. I mean, that has continued. He really didn't care about that. He was so focused, he didn't even know what was going on out in the outside world. I'll give you a story. The Olympics were in Barcelona, Spain, in the summer, and I was over and gone for about a month working for NBC. And I came back, and the first day I came back, the Browns training camp was going on, and I showed up. And the Browns PR said, hey, would you like to do a one-on-one with Coach Belichick after practice? I went, yeah, sure. We set up in the field house, and what they were doing was they were trying to warm him up to the media.
After a very cold year.
And, he was, it was like telling him he was going in to have 7 root canals done, that he was going to come out and have to do an interview. But anyway, he comes out and he's trying to be nice, and he sits down and he goes, and he says to me, "Hey, Jimmy, how's your summer going?" And I said, "Oh, I just got home." He goes, "You did?" And I go, "Yeah, I was over in Barcelona at the Olympics." He goes, "The Olympics? I didn't even know those were going on." Now, now the Dream Team had played in the Olympics.
Right.
Everybody, you have to know the Olympics are
Carl
going on.
Lewis was still big then. I mean, it was huge.
Pre-singing the national anthem. But,
Yes.
I mean, that's how focused he was. And I don't think he knew the Olympics were going on. So, the outside thing with him, I remember Romeo Crennel, on the day that he was hired as the Browns head coach, was talking with me before he was coming on the newscast with us at 6 o'clock. And we were standing there, and I said, "Hey, did you notice the great feeling? Did you get out in Boston and enjoy Boston?" He said, "Jim, I did not." And I go, "Why not? I mean, what a great city, what a great town. Go see the Celtics, go see the Red Sox, And he said, "When you coach with Bill, you're in a bunker."
Yeah.
And and that's the way it was.
Right.
And it's that way today.
I mean,
it is not easy to be a Patriot.
No. I mean, but if your ultimate goal is winning championships, well, I mean, if you're a Patriot, you've got a good shot. And it leads, if you wonder, I mean, Tom Brady's been able to deal with it and to be in that bunker for his entire career, and the two of them are always going to be linked because of it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, and see, now he's got the quarterback. But see, if he had the quarterback here, I think they were on their way, but they didn't have it. And his inability to get it, and it wasn't going to be Eric Zeier, and it wasn't going to be Vinny Testaverde,
or Todd Philcox.
And there was Mark Rippon at one point, and
all these Tomczak.
Yeah, I mean, there were all these guys that were coming in, and he just couldn't find it. And that was the way it went.
As the lights go out. I mean, the lights went out on the Browns. I sit back to Kozar for a second, because I mean, and I guess the two of them, and I've talked to Bernie about this in the past too, that they do have, Bernie and Belichick do have a relationship now that's they are friends to what they would have you believe. And when going back to the first Super Bowl, Bernie called Belichick to congratulate him, and that meant a lot to Bill, and they've maintained a relationship. But he was threatened, Belichick, by not just Kozar's popularity, but the fact that, quite honestly, the Cleveland Browns at that point didn't need an offensive coordinator, because Bernie could have called the plays and really could have acted in that, and often did call the plays. And that was, Belichick never really could go with somebody who had that kind of will.
Yeah, you're right. Now, the other thing was that Bernie had like a father-son type of relationship with Art Modell at that point in time. And, Bernie could go right to the owner. I mean, he really could in a lot of situations and alleviate a situation or change, a situation. And Modell knew what he had in Kozar and the popularity of Bernie, and really, Bernie was the guy. That was not going to work with Belichick. Now, Bill has the same situation right now in New England.
Right.
Okay, I mean, Tom Brady has an incredible relationship with Robert Kraft.
Oh, yeah.
And that has been a challenging thing for Belichick, which he has been through the years now. I think he realizes he has to soften on that.
Yeah.
But he didn't here.
Right.
But, if you go back in time, how much great football did Bernie play once he did get cut?
Oh, I mean, Bernie. If you remember, he finished out the '93 season with the Cowboys. Had threw the touchdown in the NFC Championship game, and then he ended up going to Miami, and I think 2 years as Dan Marino's backup.
Yeah.
So I mean, in retrospect, was Belichick wrong? Probably not.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
how
was it diminishing skills, or was it this guy's a little bit too much of a threat? I want him to take a left turn. He takes a right turn.
Yeah. Because, I mean, Belichick really liked the idea of, they brought in Steve Crosby, if I remember right, to run the offense, and they loved the idea of a lot of play action and a lot of movement around the pocket. Well, I mean, Bernie at that point was only 30 years old, 29, 30 when he got cut. But but he was an old 30 in terms of being able to run. He couldn't run when he was 22.
Right. And Dino, he wasn't really the same after at least throwing the ball after that injury on opening day at Arrowhead
in
Stadium
89,
that year when he got hit on the elbow.
Yeah.
I mean, he really had some throwing. He had some throwing problems, I think, and he had to change his mechanics. And Bernie found a way to do it, but I mean, it just wasn't going to work.
No, he hurt his knee later that year, and then in '92 he broke his leg. He played the fourth quarter against the Dolphins, I think, on a Monday night with a busted ankle, and the Browns actually should have won that game. But physically he was breaking down. Again, Belichick read that, but the problem is when you get up in front of a camera like this, and you're talking about Bernie, and any list, I'm sorry, and I think Jimmy would agree, any list of the most popular Cleveland sports athlete of all time, or if you make a Mount Rushmore, Bernie Kosar's on that monument.
Yeah,
I mean, there are just certain people that's on it, and Bernie's on it. Sandy Alomar might be on it too, and you can't just mumble your way through a press conference and say, "Oh, you got diminishing tools," and expect that to be okay with the fans. And I was saying to you earlier, and I don't know if I'm alone with this. Once that happened, and I was 18, I think, when they, or actually I think I just turned 19 when they cut Bernie. A lot of my innocence as a Browns fan was gone. I mean, and I still rooted for them in '94 when they did the playoffs, but it never felt the same to me.
Yeah.
And because I couldn't believe that the Browns would do that to our guy, to our Bernie.
Yeah.
And it made that rift between team and coach and fans, and also those who have to support putting money into a new stadium or a renovated stadium. It made that gulf a heck of a lot wider.
Yeah, it did. And he was I think that the thing with Belichick was that he is a brilliant guy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he is light years ahead of everybody. I mean, when you play the Patriots now, he becomes a real problem because you go into the game, and he is a big factor in the game on how you prepare, what he's going to take away from you. I mean, that's what's driving the Rams crazy right now. He's had 2 weeks now to get ready for the game. It's a young quarterback that he's going to face. That combination has always come up big for him to beat those teams. 2 weeks to prepare, and a young quarterback means he's going to really tantalize. Jared Goff's going to see things that he's never thought even in his 2 weeks of preparation, that he's never seen before. Not even with the great Sean McVay preparing him.
He is great.
And talking in his ear until
That's right.
15 seconds left to go on the play clock. And Belichick was just a genius, but I think it really was going to take time here in Cleveland. But I think he would have succeeded. But he had to get a quarterback, and he just couldn't do that.
And the other thing with the guy who picked players, wouldn't it have been amazing potentially if the Browns don't move, if somehow Angels come out and give Art Modell money and he keeps the team here? I'm just playing the what if. But if Art Modell says to Bill Belichick, "Hey, listen, I think it's time for Ozzie Newsome to, have much more of a say in personnel. He's waiting. He's been waiting for the opportunity. Let him be your wingman when it comes to personnel."
Yeah.
And that first year, people always forget the Browns in Baltimore is the Ravens. I mean, they drafted Ray Lewis and Jonathan Ogden their first year, and within 4 years are in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and then they got great corners. They got Dwayne Starks. They got Chris McAllister. And then Ed Reed. I mean, it really started at that. Jamal Lewis. I mean, it really did. You're right. I mean, Ozzie was a coach for Belichick,
right? And
was just kind of getting into the whole scouting thing, and that would have been an amazing combination.
Yeah.
Bill had great respect for Ozzie.
Right.
Wanted to keep Ozzie around. Wanted to give him this new career off of his playing career, because you're kind of wondering where Ozzie was going to go with that. But that would have been the combination. He would have needed that because he had Mike Lombardi, and that was a mess. That's been a mess.
That's been a mess wherever Mike's gone, and that was why so many of us, when Joe Banner at first kind of hinted they were going to bring Lombardi back. It was like, no, don't do it. We've already done the song and dance. Don't do it again. And it only lasted a year. Did Belichick need to go back to being an assistant and learn from Bill Parcells, get a refresher course from Bill Parcells in order to be great like he was in New England? Or because it seems like a lot of what he's still done, people always talk about the education of a coach. David Halberstam wrote a great book about Belichick. Much of what he does in New England, he was doing here.
Yeah.
But it's like you said, he's drafted better. He's got better people around him helping him to pick. But he got the quarterback. If he didn't get the quarterback, then we're not having this conversation.
And he got the quarterback in the 6th round. Here's an interesting thing, and this is something to think about as you get ready for Sunday's game. If you take their starting offense and defense, okay, over 50% of the 22 players that start the game, and even a little bit higher if you add in their special teams, are guys that were picked from the 4th round to the end of the draft that are street free agents and that are college undrafted free agents. Wow. Over 50%. Their offensive line is 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, 7th round. It's unbelievable what he does. And he's perfected that.
Yeah.
Now, your question, did he have to take a step back? I think he did. I think he needed to take a year or two back and say, hey, what went wrong there? Because he readily admits he made mistakes in Cleveland, but he learned from them. And he went back under the wing of Parcells. And, it was a good marriage. Parcells needed him, too. And he went back with him, and they did some pretty good things with the Jets and with the Patriots. And then it was time. But Bill needed to get away from Parcells at that point, and that's why I think the whole Jets situation, where he didn't want to be underneath, Bill Parcells' wing at that point. He wanted to go, and he went to New England. So I do think he needed to step away a little bit and clean things up.
Yeah, and we talk about what could-haves and what should-haves and everything with the Browns. It's just interesting because it's been now 25 years, and that's a time, and I know, like we talked about last night, the NFL Network documentary, if you've seen Cleveland 95, it really focuses a lot more on Belichick's staff and the people he put around him. But I thought what I loved about what you did tonight, it really looked at kind of year by year as the Browns were trying to grow. And they went from 6 wins to 7 wins to 11 wins.
Yeah, he was incrementally.
Or 7 wins. Actually, there were 7 wins twice and then 11 wins. It was incrementally better.
Right.
Because he was starting to figure out how to win his way, despite the fact that we all hated it. As fans, we didn't necessarily like his approach.
Yeah.
But you couldn't argue with the success.
Yeah. And the year they made the playoffs, in '94, I mean, their offense was not explosive.
No.
But their defense was the highest scoring defense in Cleveland Browns history. I mean, they were really good. Those old Giants still had some gas in the tank, okay? And they were really good. I mean, they were great. And I remember down at the old stadium, I think it was New Year's Day, when they played Parcells' Patriots, quarterback by Drew Bledsoe. And they came in flying. I mean, Bledsoe was thrown for 450 every afternoon that he played. And the Browns defense shut them down that day and came up with some interceptions, because if you pressured Bledsoe, he would throw the ball to you. And it was amazing. So their offense was kind of plodded along. I mean, it was kind of the way he likes it. I mean, they ran the ball. They ran it hard.
Oh, yeah. Leroy Horde.
But it was their defense. I mean, they were really, really tough. I mean, it was a tough, tough defense.
There were a couple of guys he did draft, Steve Everett and Eric Turner. I mean, were great draft picks.
Yeah.
Craig Powell, touchdown Tommy Vardell.
Clifford Charlton.
Yeah. Not so great.
Yeah, not so great.
Not so great. But
Lawyer Tillman.
Oh, that was Bud Carson and Ernie
that
Accorsi.
just didn't work out.
That didn't work
Eric
out.
Metcalf was, an interesting guy for them. I mean, he really played very, very well for him. I mean, he liked Metcalf. He loved his speed, things like that. And, but, I mean, you take a look at it, and he was a fascinating guy.
Yeah. A couple of quick questions here as we wrap up the show here. Robert says, Bill is king and you can't question him as a quarterback. Well, and that was the thing, Robert. You're right. I mean, Bill came in here as a genius and you couldn't question him. And Bernie, had really. If you hear Bernie Kosar talk today, he'll mention how, like in the second half of the AFC Championship game, the one in Denver, the fumble game, Bernie called. He said, "You know what? People think Lindy Infante called the plays. I called all the plays in the second half. I mean, when the Browns ran up the offense. Whether that's all true, I mean, I love Bernie. But Bernie had an ego, and
yes, he did.
And Belichick had an ego, and Robert's right. Bill's the king, man. And there was only so much I think that Belichick could take being questioned.
Well, yeah, I think so, and I think that there was, it just. I don't think he liked the way he played, too.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a part of it that Bernie's game had come apart a little bit. As you pointed out, his body had come apart a little bit. So, there was a little bit of the skill loss there. But you're right. I think that there was a personality clash from day one as to a power struggle.
Yeah.
And it was different. There was a new sheriff in town. And this sheriff took his job very seriously, that being Belichick.
Could Art Modell have put up with... Again, we're living in an alternate universe where Art Modell doesn't sell the team. Again, he gets an angel investment or whatever, and he's still the owner of the Browns. Could he have put up with Bill Belichick as king long term?
Well, here's the thing about Art Modell. Art Modell, from New York, okay, loved the Giants, okay, really respected the Maras.
Yes, big time.
And really respected Parcells. And here was this guy, and Art Modell thought he pulled off the coup of all coups to get him after he put together that amazing defensive game plan to slow down the Buffalo Bills of Jim Kelly. But remember, let me just go inside that game just for a second. Remember, the Giants controlled the ball with a running attack. O.J. Anderson, those guys.
Jeff Hostetler didn't have to make too many plays. He made a few, but that was O.J. Anderson's game.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Yeah. But anyway, he was coming off this great defensive performance. He was the guy to get.
Right.
He was the guy to get, and he got him. And here he was, this New York Giant guy. That meant a lot to Art.
Yeah.
So I think had the results. Art loved a winner.
Right.
Okay, so if he started to win with more regularity, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think he would have. He probably would have butt in and been a pain in some ways, but I think that. I think it would have been. I think it would have been fine. And if it meant that he was going to be the king of the NFL.
Oh, right. If he was going, if he could,
he was going to be Robert Kraft,
hoist that trophy,
and,
right?
Hoist
then
that trophy.
Then it would have been great. Was there any thought at all in 1991, as the 90 season ended, we went to 1991, of Bill Cowher for Art Modell, or was it basically Belichick or bust? Because I know Bill, because Cowher wanted, even in '89, when Schottenheimer was let go, Cowher ended up going with him. But everybody always thought that Bill Cowher was going to be a head coach someday.
Well, Cowher interviewed at one point when he was with Marty in Kansas City, and he had become Marty's defensive coordinator with the Chiefs. But he did get the opportunity to interview with the Browns, but felt it was just a token interview because he was a Brown.
Right.
Okay, and I remember him telling me, because I was in Kansas City doing a game and happened to see Cowher, and Bill said, I said, hey, that was really something that you got the opportunity to interview for the job. And he went, you know what, and I'll forever be thankful for him. It was a great experience. But I think that's what it was. It was it was an experience.
Because Belichick was a hot guy. Was Tom Coughlin?
Well, Tom Coughlin was really kind of an amazing situation, because Tom Coughlin was with the Giants, but then didn't get the Giants' job. Hadley got it.
Yeah.
Remember Ray
Hadley or whatever his name is.
Yeah, he got the job. He was the running backs coach. Yeah. And Coughlin then left and went to Boston College. And, of course, then made his name there by denying Notre Dame's Lou Holtz a national championship with a redheaded quarterback by the name of Glenn Foley.
Oh, yes, I remember him.
And they upset Notre Dame after Notre Dame the week before had beaten Charlie Ward and Florida State in the game of the century.
Yes.
In South Bend. They came back the next week, and Boston College beat them at the buzzer on a field goal and denied Notre Dame to win the title. And then Tom Coughlin ended up getting the Jacksonville job.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I think that, Tom Coughlin was an interesting guy. I mean, he was right out of that mold. I mean, you talk about the Belichick rules.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the Tom Coughlin rules are even tighter, I think.
And so much of it probably is because of Bill Parcells.
Bill Parcells, right.
Although
they all talk about Parcells.
Yeah.
They all talk about Parcells. I mean, they really do. I mean, if you even talk about, you talk to Freddie Kitchens now, I mean, he talks about Parcells.
Yeah.
When he needed advice, he called
Parcells.
Parcells called him after the interview, the first interview, and said, "How did you do? Tell me what you did."
Hey, what's going on?
Yeah. I mean, really, that's what they were all about.
Right.
Really.
And it's interesting now. People always want to talk about coaching trees and all that stuff, but Parcells really stands up there with the Bill Walsh as really a guy who so many others, it's like the pyramid of success, really followed Parcells as much as anybody in the modern NFL world.
More so than Belichick.
Yeah.
Belichick, Bill's tree of, offspring coaches.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give Bill Nick Saban. Nick Saban is one of the greatest, if not the greatest, coach in the history of college football. I'll give Belichick that, but after that, I'm kind of stuck.
Yeah, you're into Romeo had problems a couple of times. Didn't get it done as a head coach. Bill O'Brien's been, Metza down there in Houston. Josh McDaniels failed in Denver.
Right.
Matt Patricia had a tough first year. A Belichick-like first year.
Yeah.
In Detroit with the Lions. You could go on and on like that. But you're right. The Parcells tree is sturdier and has been more of a winning result.
Yeah. One more comment here from Bobby says, now, Paul Brown was very much like Bill.
Yeah.
Art may have had a problem there. Yeah. And it's funny, as you point out in the piece,
he idolized Paul Brown.
Who did Bill Belichick love the most in the coaching world? Paul Brown.
He did. Ed Meyer, who was a part of the piece, covered the Browns in a real tough writer. Tough beat writer. But anyway, he was telling me a story that Belichick kind of opened up early and wanted to get to know everybody. He used to call the beat writers and go over some things. This was before they went to training camp. But Belichick invited Ed Meyer to go do a story in Annapolis with Steve Belichick, Bill's dad.
Yeah.
And so Ed Meyer went to Annapolis and he visited where Bill grew up. And Steve Belichick showed him where Bill used to snap the ball all the time because Belichick was a center and he wore out the carpet.
Yeah.
Down in their, I think, basement from practicing snapping. But what was the book that he had there? One of Paul Brown's books.
Right.
And he loved Paul Brown.
Yeah.
He idolized Paul Brown.
Yeah. And I can remember him saying, what book is on my nightstand? Paul Brown.
Well, and the other thing too is the thing about Belichick, you have to remember, he really loved the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
He was so proud to be the head coach of the Cleveland Browns because of Paul Brown. And just a quick story before we go. When the Patriots last came here a couple of years ago and rolled into town, the Jim Brown statue was up.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Patriots won the game. And it was the game when Tom Brady came back off of his suspension.
Yeah.
Anyway, they rolled and they won the game. And they're pulling out in their buses, getting ready to go to the airport, and they're pulling around the corner by the Science Center, and Belichick orders all the buses to stop, pull over. And they pull over, and he tells the team to come out and join him, and they all walk over to the Jim Brown statue, and Belichick gives them a lecture about Jim Brown. I'm telling you, he loved the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
He was so proud to be a part there you go.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating
story. Great job on it.
Thank you.
It really was terrific to watch again. We also have the companion story now at WKYC.com, looking back at the legacy of Bill Belichick in Cleveland. It's quite a story. All right, we'll see everybody back here tomorrow night. We'll also, again, here on Facebook Live, if you missed it, catch the interview with Sandy Alomar Jr. as the Sports Awards is coming next week. Great night, Jimmy.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to David Herberton pulling double duty, and thanks to you all for watching. I'm Dave DiNatale on the Donovan Live Postgame Show here on WKYC's Facebook Live.